Good morning, Miss Kellogg's campers. Miss Kellogg is here today to do a writing mini lesson with you. So before we get started, I want to show you the things that you're going to need in order to complete this lesson today. So in our packets that your parents picked up for you, we are on week 6, and it looks like that. This is the front page of reading log. And then if you turn right behind it, is the first page that you're going to need today. This is our writing organizer. You may recognize this. We only really got to do this one time in our animal unit this year. So we'll be working with this organizer like this for the next few weeks that are left in school. And Miss Kellogg will be doing it in a video like this with you, which is pretty neat. So you'll need this sheet, and then you will also need the sheet that's directly behind it. And I know, let me see if I can get this turned correctly, that you recognize this, because this is what we did all of our daily journals on, and any writing final draft was written on this paper. So your picture will go up top like always, and then you'll put your final draft and your sentences from our spring writing down below. Okay, guys? You'll also need a pencil, obviously. And then if you want, Miss Kellogg always suggests that we draw our picture in pencil first, and then we use crayons with it. But of course, you're at home, so if you have colored pencils or if you would like to use markers, that is okay. Miss Kellogg just always suggests using crayons, okay? So if you want to pause the video for a second so that you can go get those two things, you won't need them right away in the lesson, but you are going to need them close by. So if you need to pause and grab those materials, go ahead and do that now, okay? Okay, so I hope that you've got your materials. You can just set those to the side for right now. Miss Kellogg, Emmy received a little package in the mail from her grandparents who live in Colorado, and they sent her this book, and it's just titled Spring, and I loved it, so I thought I would share it with you guys. It's really short, but you can add it to your reading log if you would like, and it just kind of gives us an idea of the things that happen in spring. Now, our writing today is going to be on the topic of spring, and we're writing to inform our friends. So our purpose is to tell whoever is reading our story some facts about spring, okay? So as you can see behind you, or behind me, I'm sorry, Miss Kellogg made a large version of your organizer. So I'm going to do an example for you on my big paper, and we'll talk about it as we go through. But the first thing I want to do is I want to read this little book to you guys. And this might get your wheels turning about some things that happen in spring, and it gives us some good facts about spring in general. What's pretty neat about this book, and probably because it's just a little kid's board book, the author and illustrator's names are on the back, which is interesting. So this book is titled Spring, and it's written and illustrated by Leo Liani and Julie Hamilton. All right. Hello, spring. I'm so glad to see you. You make the trees bud. You see the little buds in the trees? That's the beginning of new growth. The flowers bloom, and the baby birds chirp in their nest. Spring, I know you're here when I hear the buzz of bees in the meadow, the frogs clicking and croaking on the pond, and the bunnies rustling in the bushes. I love the sweet smells you bring, fresh cut green grass, rich roses, and lovely lilies. Those are great adjectives describing our nouns. Lovely lilies, rich roses, and big raindrops that soak the soil and help the gardens grow. I even like when your raindrops plop on my nose and when my feet squelch in the mud. Spring, you bring so many surprises. I hope you never end. All right, I hope you liked that short little story about spring, and I hope you were really listening because if so, you may have already gotten detail 1, 2, and 3 for your paragraph writing on spring. And if so, then you're already way ahead of the game. Okay, guys, so now what I want you to do is you need to go ahead and get your organizer, your writing organizer out for Miss Kellogg. And I'm going to do it on my big sheet up here, and I'm hoping that you can see it okay. I'll be talking through it as we go. Now, we did get to work a lot with topic sentences before we got out for spring break and before all of this coronavirus stuff happened and kind of left us at home. But we did get to talk a lot about topic sentences. And what we need to remember is a topic sentence tells us what our paragraph or our writing is all about. So if somebody were to start reading, once they read that first sentence, they'll know what everything after it is going to give them information about. So we know that our topic is spring, is what I hope that you said back to Miss Kellogg. So we need a topic sentence that tells us about our story. Now, when we were in class, we got to use those really awesome topic sentence organizers that we put our topic and we said is or are, put it into a category, that, which, or who, and then tell a fact about it. So you, when you're doing this writing, may use the same topic sentence as Miss Kellogg, or you can do your own. But remember, we're telling information to our reader in our writing this week, information about spring. So if Miss Kellogg wanted to put spring into a category, the first thing that comes to mind to me is that it's a season. And we know that we have 4 seasons, and spring is one of them. So Miss Kellogg's topic sentence may look something like this. I'll start with spring since that is what I'm writing about. And I make sure I have that capital letter even in my organizer because that's good practice. Spring is or are. And now when you're writing your sentences, it's really good to talk out loud because that helps you to hear it to make sure it sounds correct. Spring is a season. Spring are a season. Is a season. Spring is a season. Now remember, just like in the classroom, we want to try to spell all of our power words correctly. And you should have those power word lists on Google Classroom if you need to go and use those. But if you don't know how to spell a word, you spell it how it sounds, okay? You won't be, of course, being penalized for any or marked wrong for any misspellings. But if it's a power word, we want to make sure we spell it correctly because you guys know how to do that. Spring is a season, that, which, who. I'm going to use that, or let's see. I think I'll use that. That. And now I want a fact after this. Spring is a season that. If I said spring is a season that is fun, let's think about that. Is that a fact or Miss Kellogg's opinion? Because we have to remember, not all of you may love the season of spring, so you may not think it's fun. So that would be Miss Kellogg's opinion, but we want a fact. So spring is a season that I think Miss Kellogg is going to say that is warm. In our story, it talked about all of the animals coming outside and the garden starting to grow. And we know that in the cold weather, a lot of animals hibernate or stay inside. So we have to think about it. Spring is a lot warmer than our winter and fall seasons. So spring is a season that is warm. And I can't forget, I always need my punctuation, even on my organizer. And Miss Kellogg is going to use a period because I just gave you a statement. Spring is a season that is warm. Now, I hope that you were doing that along with me on your organizer, and you may have chosen a different fact to put behind it, which is perfect, or you may have done a different category. That's great. If not, you are welcome to use this one. Now, for our details, Miss Kellogg's going to go down them. And remember, our details are just more facts about our topic. So, Miss Kellogg, I am going to think about the book that we just read, and I want to use facts from that book. So, I could do my first detail as, let's see. The book talked about frogs coming out to play during the spring and bees buzzing around the flowers. So Miss Kellogg is going to put, for detail number 1, and I make sure I have that capital A, animals come out to play. And I'm going to end that with a period as well. For my detail number 2, Miss Kellogg is going to use the book again, and I think I might write people begin. That's one of those power words we've had, guys. Begin to plant what do they begin to plant? Some people might plant just flowers, and other people might plant gardens. Miss Kellogg and Emmy and Mr. Justin planted a garden, so I think that's what I'll write. People begin to plant gardens. And remember, a fact is something that you can prove, right? So we have to think about this. Could we prove that more animals come out to play? Think about if you've been outside on a walk. How many squirrels do you see running around, and how many birds do you hear chirping? I know I've seen a lot of bees in my backyard around my flower plants in our garden. So that is definitely something that we could prove. Also, we could prove that people begin to plant gardens. I mean, I bet we could ask a lot of people if they have a garden planted already, and they would tell us yes and be able to show us. So that is something that we could prove. So far we have spring is a season that is warm. Animals come out to play. People begin to plant gardens. And we need our last detail. And I think Miss Kellogg is going to talk about the weather. Not only is the weather warm, but let's think about what just happened this last week and Easter weekend. We get a lot of what? A lot of rain and storms. But our book about spring told us that all that rain helps our gardens and our plants to grow. So I think for Miss Kellogg's detail number 3, I am going to write many rain showers there are many. I have lots of power words Miss Kellogg's singing here. Many rain showers. Sorry, guys. Showers. And Miss Kellogg could even add on to that sentence to make it really stretch it out and say there are many rain showers that help plants grow. Let's see if I can fit all that in. That I might have to write a little smaller. Help. Oh, goodness. Plants. I'm going to write underneath it, guys. Plants grow. I'm going to write right underneath that. Miss Kellogg ran out of a little bit of room, but I'm making sure I have that period. But I really just took my sentence and I stretched it out. Remember, we love to have sentences with 5 to 7 words in them. So there are many rain showers that help plants grow. And the last thing that you have to do is we need a closing sentence. And a closing sentence is really important because it helps to really wrap up our whole writing, okay? It brings it to a close. Remember how Miss Kellogg always says, if you don't put punctuation at the end of a sentence, you're leaving the door open. And do we like to leave the door open at our house? Sometimes our parents might say, we don't live in a barn, make sure you close the door. Well, that's the same thing with our writing. So without a closing sentence, it's kind of just leaving it open. So for our closing sentence, it's really just wrapping up our writing, but it can also be a feeling sentence. You can tell us how you feel about the season of spring. So for Miss Kellogg's closing sentence, she is going to say, as you, and I'm going to just kind of get down here so hopefully you can see this. You can see, and I'm going to zoop because I need a comma right there. Spring is and I might say cool, or you could say fun season. And that is how Miss Kellogg feels about it. But if you don't feel the same way, you don't have to use that sentence. But you want to do this closing sentence that will help you wrap everything up. And Miss Kellogg ended that with an exclamation mark because that's an exciting sentence, and that's how I feel about it. I think it's a cool season. So we now have all of our information. And if you were just watching with Miss Kellogg and not doing it with her, that's awesome too, because now you can pause the video and you may have more of an idea of how to fill out your organizer. And I want you to go ahead and get this done, because the next thing that we're going to do is take all of our sentences that we wrote here and we're going to put them onto our final draft paper. I want you guys to check for your chops on here. So Miss Kellogg needs to check her chops. And remember, that means you need a green or a red. And if you don't have a green or red, you can always just do this with your pencil. But we need to go through and make sure Miss Kellogg has all of her capital letters. So I'll just go ahead and put my box around my capital letters. And remember, we always have capital letters at the beginning of a sentence. And we also have capital letters if we have a proper noun. And if you have a little letter at the beginning of a sentence, a lowercase one, don't put a box around it. Make sure you change it to a capital letter before you have boxes, okay? So Miss Kellogg would go through here, and I'm going to do that with all of my sentences. And to make sure I have my punctuation, I'll do my lines underneath. Now, chops is not just capitals and punctuation, guys. Remember, we need to read it out loud orally so we can hear to make sure our sentences sound correct. We need to check for our punctuation, and we need to check our spelling. But remember, you're not getting counted off if you don't know how to spell a word. Please make sure you're spelling all your power words correctly and using your list on Google Classroom to double check those. And then everything else, I just want you to sound it out and spell it to your best of your ability, okay? Miss Kellogg is going to pause the video. I'm going to get my big sheet up here to show you, and we'll pick up in just a second. Guys, I hope that you got your writing organizer finished if you hadn't done it with Miss Kellogg. Miss Kellogg took another big sheet, and I made a copy of your final draft paper to show you how we transfer it. I know that sometimes it can be a little confusing when we have to take our sentences from our organizer and to put it on our final draft paper. But we just need to remember that you want to write your sentences in the order that you created them when we were filling out our organizer. So you'll start with your topic sentence because that introduces what you're writing about. And you'll bring that first, okay? And then you'll bring detail 1 next, 2, 3, and then the last sentence that is written on your paper is also the last sentence that's written on your organizer. So it's a good idea to have your organizer right next to you when you're copying, okay? Don't forget that when you copy it, make sure you've got those capital letters. Check your chops. And remember, if you get your first sentence written and it's not all the way to the end of the line, that's okay. When you start your next one, you want to fill up the whole first line before you move to your second one. So if you can see Miss Kellogg, she filled all the way to the end. And even though from my first sentence, I moved down here, I didn't skip the rest of that and start my next sentence underneath. I started right after the period. Don't forget about Mr. Spaceman, using him to put your spaces between your words. Remember, we don't want to make him sad if he's not there being used. And of course, you can draw your picture first if you'd like. Since Miss Kellogg talked about plants growing and it being warm and us having animals come out, I went ahead and drew. I tried to draw pictures of what I wrote about, which it's kind of hard to see since I did it with crayons, but I drew some flowers and some insects flying and a big sun. Anyway, so this is what you need to do. Miss Kellogg would love to see your final draft and your organizer. So if you want mom or dad or your guardian to take a picture of both of those sheets, and you can either turn them in after you complete it or at the end of the week with the rest of your packet. I would love to see your writing and your good artwork. Remember, you're the author and the illustrator, and this is your work, so do your very, very best. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I miss you guys. Bye.